So if it comes down to his needing the superdelegates, can Romney count on them? Let's bring in our political panel. Tim Punk, former President Clinton economic advisor and former advisor to the Senate Finance Committee, and Ron Bonjean, former communications director to House Speaker Dennis Hastert. Thank you both for joining us, first of all.
Thank you.
So, as a means of an explanation for our viewers, 123 superdelegates, they will attend the Republican National Convention in Tampa this August. They're voting delegates who are not elected or appointed, but included by virtue of their party roles. In nearly every state and territory, the GOP chairman, RNC chairman, and RNC committee woman hold the status. Now, Romney already enjoys the backing of 33 of these automatic RNC delegates. So if it comes down to his needing the superdelegates, can he do it? Can he count on their support? Ron, I'll start with you.
It's a great question. You know, it's really going to depend on how many superdelegates he needs, how close he is. You know, but what's really important here is that these are mostly going to be establishment-type Republicans that have RNC positions. So he already enjoys 33 of these delegates. That means he's going to need, you know, he may need as many as, 90 more. However, I think that Mitt Romney is not going to need this. I think he's going to make the nomination. Most people want this. Most Republicans want this wrapped up. They're tired of it dragging out. But if he needs superdelegates, I do think they're going to swing his way.
And Tim, here's the thing. Hundreds more delegates will be free to support any candidate in Tampa. There's actually a total of 430 unbound delegates that will vote at the National Convention, including the 123 superdelegates that we talked about. So do you think that he can do it and get the support needed if it comes down to it?
Well, I think Ron's exactly right that these superdelegates really represent the establishment elite of the Republican Party. And what's interesting to me is that if we get to a point where Mitt Romney needs the establishment elite to kind of get him across the finish line, it really only reinforces those things about Mitt Romney that a lot of Republicans and a lot of other folks really don't like about Mitt Romney. Listen, I think what's most interesting as you start talking about this convention and the idea of superdelegates being needed is you have a lot of Republicans sort of hearkening back to the Democratic 2008 primary. But it's a really different situation today. In 2008, you had two candidates that Democrats really liked. Today, you're in a situation where people are still talking about the Hail Mary kind of Mitch Daniels or Chris Christie. You have conservative columnists today still saying, look, forget about the presidency, focus on down ballot. So the fact that we're having this conversation about the convention and a sort of brokered convention or superdelegates, I think really portends badly for Mitt Romney in the fall.
You know, but here's the thing, Tim, and I'm going to skip ahead. We actually pulled a couple articles when you go back to that election between Hillary Clinton and President Obama, and they were vying for those superdelegates when it came down to it. And that's another question that I had. What is really, do you think, going on behind the scenes in terms of campaigning for those superdelegates? What do you think that is being done, and how do you campaign for that? Tim?
Well, I think that's a place where, frankly, Mitt Romney has a lot better of a strategy. I think Rick Santorum is still kind of the guy in the truck with one campaigner going around Iowa. I'm not sure that his campaign has really gotten about that. I mean, he's much more of a grassroots, conservative base type of a guy. So if it comes down to these superdelegates and the establishment, Mitt Romney is going to be in a much better position than Santorum or anyone else.
And what do you think, Ron?
Yeah, I know last summer Mitt Romney's campaign is telling people that they were prepared for a long grind. They knew that this could be a possibility. They have been preparing for the trench warfare. They've been doing the math, and they've been trying to sell the math to the media and to the public that they're going to take the nomination. Now, I think they're ready for it, and they're talking to superdelegates, as we speak, probably. They're working overtime on it. And I think Tim is also right that Rick Santorum does not have that type of organization. He's relying on the social conservative base of the party to come to his defense and to count on those unbound delegates to try to get him or keep him involved.
And quickly, we only have about a minute left, but I want to ask about the Gingrich factor. Newt Gingrich has said that he is staying in this race. He will make it to the convention in order to keep Romney from getting to that magic 1144 number. He says that's his goal. Could he get in the way of Romney's getting the much-needed number of superdelegates too? The Gingrich factor. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting RNC rule that, if Newt Gingrich can get, the only way Newt Gingrich can get to the convention is if he places with a plurality of 5 states. That means he has to do very well in 5 states. So far, he's only done decently well in 2. And so in order to even get himself into the convention, he has to follow the RNC rules. So it's going to be tough for him to pull off.
And
however, he's going to run a shadow campaign, obviously.
Tim, quickly, your comment?
Look, I think if Newt Gingrich wants to prevent Mitt Romney from getting the nomination, the one thing he can do is drop out of the race and get behind Rick Santorum. The only thing he's doing right now is siphoning off conservative votes. So he right now, I think, is Romney's biggest ally.
Okay, and tonight, Louisiana, 20 delegates up for grabs. Keep it right here on Fox. We'll let you know what happens as the results come in. Meantime, thank you to both of you for your insight. We appreciate it today.
Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Well, a flag for every fallen soldier. More than 6,000 stars and stripes displayed at a church in Middletown, New Jersey, the so-called Field of Flags tribute, honoring the U.S. military servicemen and women who have died fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Anna Koyman with the story live outside Westminster Presbyterian Church. Hi, Anna.
Hey there, Greg. Yeah, that number is now 6,399 casualties since the start of the wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And now that is the number of flags here on the lawn at Westminster Presbyterian Church. It's part of the Field of Flags, which is a traveling memorial being set up at churches across the country. This congregation today held a very special and patriotic